In the world of astrology, each year is colored with a special hue, filled with unique energies that influence people's destinies. And if the past 2024 was shrouded in a shroud of mystery and internal transformations, the coming 2025 promises to be completely different. It appears to us as a year of concrete actions, a year when clear contours of the future are outlined. For some, it will be a launching pad for new endeavors, while for others, it will be a continuation of the development path started in the second half of 2024. Especially bright, these trends will manifest themselves in the lives of people born under the sign of Scorpio. Representatives of this sign, born in the period from 1980 to 1989, will feel a powerful impulse to self-realization. 2025 will be for them a year of career achievements, perhaps even a radical change of professional activity. This is the time when you should boldly say goodbye to the past and open new horizons. Scorpios born in the 60s, from 1960 to 1969, will continue their journey of inner transformation. For them, 2025 is a time of learning, rethinking, and searching for new meanings. Perhaps they will feel drawn to the unknown, to areas related to the human soul and its mysteries. It is possible that their attention will be attracted to areas such as psychology or even esotericism. One thing is for sure, they will not be bored. For Scorpios, whose birth years were in the 50s, 1950 to 1959, the coming year will pass under the sign of travel and family ties. They should pay special attention to long-distance travel, perhaps even moving, as well as interaction with younger family members. These areas of life will be the most important and will require special attention. The generation of Scorpios born in the 90s, 1990 to 1999, will meet 2025 at a crossroads. Two important roads will open before them: the path of personal relationships, which will be discussed in more detail below, and the path of professional growth. For some, this year will be the starting point of a long, 14-year cycle of self-realization and career building. Even the youngest members of the sign, Scorpios of the 2000s, 2000 to 2009, will feel the spirit of change and will meet with real breakthroughs. As surprising as it may sound at such a young age, each of them may encounter events that will be a turning point in their individual journey. This could be anything from their first serious relationship to starting a new job or enrolling in an educational institution. That's why 2025 can be considered a breakthrough year for all Scorpios, regardless of age. There is no mysticism or mystery in it. Everything is extremely clear and transparent. However, it should be noted that for some Scorpios, for example, born in the 80s or 50s, this year can be a time of completion and summarizing, especially if there are some unresolved issues in the past that require a final decision. So 2025 acts as a kind of boundary. It completes one stage and opens prospects for a new one. It is especially interesting to consider 2025 and 2026 together. After all, 2023 and 2024 have become for many a period of immersion in the past, and sometimes even a test of strength. In contrast, 2025 and 2026 represent a period of formation, a kind of starting point. Those who began learning in the fall of 2023 or during 2024 will continue their educational journey into 2025. Moreover, the knowledge gained will probably begin to find practical application. Thus, the learning process does not stop, but takes on a new, active character. This year does not dispose to rest. If circumstances force you to change your profession, leave your job, or even face the threat of dismissal, which is also possible in 2025, you should not be surprised. After all, the year 2025 is designed to streamline your life, primarily in the professional sphere. This year can hardly be called a time for romance or building deep, lasting relationships. Of course, if you are lucky enough to start a new family in 2023-2024, these relationships will continue to develop, but they may lose their former sharpness of feeling and primary importance to you. As 2025 sets before us completely different tasks that require significant expenditure of time and effort, the opportunities for paying attention to personal life will be very limited. Nevertheless, this year there will be short periods favorable for romantic relationships. These include February through the first half of March, July through the first half of August, and November through the first half of December. These 3 time periods in 2025 offer prospects for both creating new love affairs and restoring previous ones. It should be noted that such annual cycles and short-term episodes, as practice shows, contribute to the emergence of fleeting relationships filled with romance and passion. However, as a rule, such unions do not last more than a few months, maximum 6 months, after which feelings quickly fade, or the relationship comes to a dead end and disintegrates. It is important to realize that for most Scorpios 2025, as well as most of the 2020s in general, is not a period of priority for personal life. At this time, there comes a stage when the representatives of this sign finally get a chance to loudly declare themselves, and many of them will have to demonstrate their talents and abilities for the first time in a completely new professional role. The issue of taking care of their own health in 2025 for Scorpios is on the back burner. Of course, individual astrological schemes can make adjustments, but if we look at the big picture, the relevance of health, which was particularly pronounced in 2024, is decreasing. What is remarkable 2025 for representatives of this sign? This is a period of active birth of new ideas, plans, and opportunities. In the life of Scorpions, there are new people, primarily related to the professional sphere, business partners, colleagues, and projects. However, most of the year, all these promising endeavors remain only at the level of discussions and agreements. There is a feeling of some stagnation, lack of real progress. Everything seems to hang in the air, despite the external activity and enthusiasm. Toward the end of summer, the situation begins to change. There is an opportunity to translate plans into action, to begin to realize what has been conceived. Prospects become more tangible, concrete, and understandable. In general, 2025 is an inspiring time for Scorpios, giving them hope for the best. It allows you to believe that the difficulties and trials of the previous years were not in vain, and soon will come a period of uplift and success. However, even in this matter, you need to be cautious. What is the reason? The reason is that the enthusiasm of 2025 and the seemingly promising prospects and strategic plans may in practice lead to only localized successes. But we will talk more about this in 2026, as the first half of 2026 will have a rather strong, sobering effect. It is possible to start large-scale projects, in principle, but it may take several years. Therefore, of course, 2025 should be considered more as a stage of laying the foundation. Certain positions are formed during this period. Significant people finally appear in your life. First of all, this applies to the professional sphere and friendships. Pay attention to those who will give you recommendations, advice, suggestions in the first 3 months of 2025 and in September-October. That is, in fact, still in the fall. During this period, you will have to interact with people unsystematically and unusually. For example, at the beginning of the year, you discuss some project with someone, but then it is frozen or postponed indefinitely and not realized. But with the onset of fall, these people, these agreements reappear in your life and everything begins to develop in earnest. In 2025, the theme of international migration comes to the forefront, associated with immersion in other cultures, getting to know new cities and countries, as well as with the transformation of one's own style, image, and self-positioning. All of this is of particular relevance in this period. Let's imagine a typical representative of the sign of Scorpio in the middle of 2025. He looks back and realizes, a year ago there was no hint of the coming changes, and today he holds a senior position or changed his profession at all, for example, from a doctor retrained as a psychologist, or from the military became an official. These are just examples for illustration, but they reflect the essence of what is happening. There is a feeling, perhaps a little deceptive, that a person has brought his or her skills and knowledge into a completely new professional sphere. This is especially pronounced for those who have decided to move to another country. In 2025, they have a clear feeling that life has been divided into before and after. After a period of difficulties and uncertainty comes a bright streak, and it is in this year that it becomes especially noticeable. It is important to remember that even within a 9-year development cycle, there are periods of ups and downs. Therefore, 2025 cannot be called the most triumphant year in this cycle, which began in 2023. However, despite all the difficulties, 2025, for the first time in a long time, gives Scorpions a ray of hope. This period is characterized by the absence of excruciating self-digging, deep inner feelings, and repressed states, which were characteristic of previous years. Of course, no one can cancel individual characteristics, and for a deeper understanding of the situation is worth referring to a personal astrological chart. But in general, for most representatives of the sign of Scorpio, the year promises to be quite calm, although it will require to take certain positions and prove themselves. This applies to both personal life and professional sphere. Scorpions will have to interact with a new environment, new people, and it is important to form the right idea of themselves. The past will remain in the past, and in the present, Scorpions will behave completely differently than a year or even 5 years ago. It can be said that the period of a more realized, mature life is coming, and Scorpios will begin to position themselves in an unusual light. Now let's take a brief look at each month of 2025 to get a general idea of the trends and directions. You'll be able to easily navigate through the time codes to get back to the month you're interested in. I should note right away that it is impossible to take into account the individual nuances for each Scorpio within this general forecast. Some people note the amazing accuracy of the predictions, while others, on the contrary, claim that the predictions have nothing to do with reality. It is important to remember that an individual horoscope is built on the basis of unique data, date of birth and name. And even with this approach, inaccuracies are possible. Therefore, general astrological forecasts should be treated only as an outside opinion, without taking them to heart. January 2025 will be a busy month for Scorpios, focused on work and career. If in the fall of 2024 or at the beginning of winter you decided on new beginnings in the professional sphere, then in January there may be unpleasant surprises. For example, a sudden dismissal may follow. However, January is very favorable for the start of joint projects. This month in general will pass under the sign of labor and restrictions. Despite the succession of holidays, many Scorpios will not be able to relax. There is a lot of time to do, to act, to be responsible for their words and actions. January can be a great starting point for those who are starting a new endeavor, such as training or working in a new company. This month has enough strength and potential to lay a solid foundation for development in the following months. At the beginning of the year, in January, Scorpios may face a feeling of deep isolation, as if trapped in loneliness with no apparent way out. However, with the arrival of February, the situation changes. February 2025 will be for representatives of this sign a period of support, and this support will come from the outside. Interestingly, it is February that will brightly highlight the theme of work-related moves, perhaps even to another country or city, and these moves will be initiated by an external offer. It is possible that Scorpios will make a joint decision to change their place of residence, choosing a geographical location that promises greater comfort and opens up prospects for the development of their own business or career growth. During this period, a person will appear on the horizon who is ready to help, share valuable advice, give a recommendation, or even directly promote Scorpios on the career ladder. February will also have an impact on personal life. If a relationship is in crisis, February and March can exacerbate the situation. However, for those who are in search, February will be a favorable time for dating, opening the door to new romantic opportunities. However, it is important to remember the key point made in the main part of the forecast. 2025 is generally conducive to the formation of new connections, mostly light and short-lived. At the same time, If your natal chart is activated period favorable to the development of personal life, then February 2025 can be a kind of catalyst that turns only nascent relationships into something deeper and more promising. March 2025 appears to be a month of momentous events for Scorpios. In other words, what happens in March is predetermined, and to influence the course of events, alas, unlikely to succeed. It is necessary to take everything that happens as a given. All the events of this month, both positive and negative, have been programmed in advance. March symbolizes the end of a certain cycle. For example, if your relationship began in 2024, especially in its second half, then the period from the end of February to March can lead to a crisis in these relationships or even to their complete rupture. A similar trend can be traced in the sphere of professional self-realization, but with some peculiarities. For example, if in September-October 2024 you changed your place of work or started to realize your own projects, then until March 2025, these endeavors will be in an uncertain state. Spring finally comes into its own, and March 2025 marks a new milestone for the representatives of the sign of Scorpio. This period can be called a kind of starting point, when you should take a break, get away from the bustle, and carefully follow the unfolding events. It is possible that your environment will undergo dramatic changes, and people with whom you have recently made ambitious plans will suddenly disappear from your horizon. April 2025 promises to be exceptionally favorable for Scorpios. This is the time of favorable contracts, inheritance, winning the lottery, generous compensation for dismissal, or participation in risky but potentially very profitable ventures. In other words, April is a month of financial prosperity and opportunities to lay the foundation for future wealth. You may launch a lucrative business project or take a promising position. April also heralds numerous trips and moves, short, spontaneous, related to professional activities or urgent personal matters. These may be business trips or trips that require a quick return. It is important to note that April opens a 2-month cycle related to health that will last until June. The current year for Scorpios is not marked by pronounced health leitmotifs, so the current health-related cycle is more of a tactical one. However, April is likely to force many representatives of this sign to pay close attention to their physical condition, and some even seriously engage in it. This month sheds light on the underlying issues related to health. It may be about planned or sudden surgical interventions, as well as about consciously changing your appearance, for example, with the help of plastic surgery. April's health problems are not limited solely to physiology. Thus, April is a multifaceted and very curious period. It is important to note that at the end of April will begin to clarify. At the same time, May promises to be an extremely serious month, especially in matters concerning large financial flows and conflict situations in the professional sphere. This month is favorable to career growth, but to achieve success, Scorpios will have to compromise some of their principles and act with the utmost caution. The atmosphere around will be heated to the limit. There may be attacks and pressure from ill-wishers. Scorpions will have to fight back, but they will have to do so subtly and diplomatically. In continuation of the April theme, May 2025 encourages Scorpios to pay special attention to their health. This month is favorable for planned medical interventions and treatments. However, there is a possibility of exacerbation of chronic diseases or injuries. The body may signal the need for care and attention to its condition. The financial sphere also remains the focus of Scorpios in May. Along with the expected income, the month involves significant expenses. Much of May will pass under the sign of major acquisitions, perhaps a long-awaited real estate deal, or receiving vacation payments. Financial matters will take center stage in the lives of Scorpios. It is possible that someone will have to painstakingly work on a tax return. June 2025 will be a month of trials for Scorpios. Relationships will come to the forefront. There may be serious disagreements with loved ones, friends, or colleagues. Those around you will seemingly stop hearing Scorpios, despite the validity and logic of their arguments. In June, you may feel as if the whole world has turned against the representatives of this zodiac sign, and this is not accidental. June summarizes the first half of the year, and for many, and the beginnings laid in the second half of 2024. In this month, you can see how the plans that were so carefully built during a year or half a year fall apart. In other words, June is a period that puts an end to certain events and circumstances. It is important to note another aspect. June marks the end of the health-related cycle that began in April. Therefore, this month is favorable for getting rid of an illness, finally deciding on a long-planned operation, or seeing ailments recede by themselves. Of course, you should always hope for the best. However, in June it is important to try to close health-related issues. In addition, June reveals tension not only in relationships with others, but also in relationships with yourself, with your inner world. One gets the impression that one's thoughts and feelings contradict how one is forced to present oneself and how one has to act. We can say that a certain duality, instability of the emotional background, characteristic of this period, for some reason is aggravated in June. And probably, it would be wise to take a wait-and-see attitude, not provoking conflict situations. In general, June, like May, will be quite stressful, especially in terms of psycho-emotional state. Therefore, you will need a certain amount of self-discipline and control over your emotions. As for July 2025 for representatives of the sign Scorpio, this month will be very restless and unstable. However, along with this, July will be a favorable period for travel, change of residence, real estate transactions, including buying and selling, as well as the execution of documents for the transfer of property to relatives or inheritance. In July, there may be a feeling that something is going wrong. There will be a certain sense of anxiety. It is quite possible that this will be due to inner feelings and tendency to exaggerate problems. That is, some deep-seated fears, unresolved issues from the past, can suddenly begin to worry in July. However, with the onset of August, will be clear that all these worries were groundless, perhaps even far-fetched, especially if it was about some threats, expressed only in words. And yet, July is an ambiguous month, full of contradictions. From the point of view of practicality, August 2025 appears to Scorpios as a period favorable for a change of residence, real estate transactions, travel, and even seclusion. At the same time, it can bring a certain amount of anxiety, the source of which is likely to be Scorpios themselves. August 2025 will awaken in the representatives of this sign memories of 2024. As if some phantom will return to the atmosphere of the past, will reappear people from that time, remind themselves of unresolved issues. Some Scorpios will be mentally transported back to 2023. In other words, August will be a time to revisit the past in order to finally resolve important issues and problems. You could even call it a month of reckoning, primarily for debts. Therefore, Scorpions should be attentive to incoming information. It is important to try to close cases that have long remained unfinished. This applies to both personal relationships and work, as well as financial obligations. However, for some Scorpios, the return to the past may take the form of resuming romantic relationships with people from a former life. August can be a time of unexpected encounters for Scorpios, resurrecting ghosts of the past, relationships that seem so distant that you don't even want to think about them, 15 or even 20 years ago. However, despite this likelihood, the return of these people from the past is likely to be fleeting, a kind of tactical maneuver rather than a strategic twist of fate. Therefore, the stars do not advise you to make far-reaching plans in this regard. But September 2025 promises to be a truly fateful month for Scorpios. This is the ideal time for those who have long dreamed of traveling far away. This month on the horizon may appear people from abroad, representatives of other cultures. Perhaps it will be associated with a new field of activity requiring the study of a foreign language. September will also be filled with various bureaucratic procedures, drawing up documents, concluding agreements and contracts, solving legal issues. Some Scorpios will have to face judicial or administrative proceedings. For some, it will be a time of active interaction with superiors, perhaps related to work issues. Others will be engaged in the re-registration of property or real estate inherited from departed relatives. In general, September will be quite troublesome, filled with the solution of purely practical problems. However, if your plans were to move, and not just a change of housing, and a real breakthrough beyond the usual, then October 2025 will be a month of clarification. It will highlight a promising strategy and will open serious opportunities for the realization of conceived. For Scorpios, this month will be a kind of bridge to the beginning of the year, in the period from January to March. For example, if in February and March the relationship was established, which by summer began to give a crack, then October will push to decisive action. It will be time to put a point, or the circumstances themselves will be so that the relationship will exhaust itself. A similar situation may arise in the field of work, business agreements. October will bring you back to the events of the beginning of the year, forcing you to reconsider relations with partners and colleagues with whom agreements were reached. Depending on the specific situation, you may have to part with these people. Or, on the contrary, you will take up the cause with redoubled energy, as the fall of 2025 will demonstrate the seriousness of the intentions of your partners. Perhaps a joint project started at the beginning of the year will shine with new colors, revealing strategic potential. The last month of fall 2025 promises Scorpios a lot of interesting things, especially in the sphere of personal relationships. As already noted in the general astrological forecast, the period from November to mid-December will be saturated with events related to new acquaintances. Single representatives of this sign have all chances to meet someone special. It is important to remember that 2025 as a whole favors light rather than serious relationships. However, depending on the individual features of the horoscope, it is not excluded the development of the novel into something more. November will first of all present Scorpions with bright, emotionally intense, but rather short-term crushes, filled with passion and sudden impulses. This intensity of feelings, compressed in time, is equivalent to a whole year of gradual relationship development. In addition to amorous affairs, November portends Scorpions the possibility of additional income. It can be both a classic part-time job and a new hobby that brings income. The daily routine will be diluted with interesting activities, which at first will seem to be just a hobby, but may well grow into something more serious and promising. The final month of 2025, December, will be a very significant period for Scorpios, closely related to the events of March of the same year. Just as December summarizes the year, it will also be a kind of reference point where projects begun in March will reach a turning point or full completion. This month will show Scorpios the results of their efforts for the year and outline the prospects for the future. However, in the realm of personal relationships, December will be a testing period for Scorpios. Crisis situations are possible both in relationships with a partner and with relatives. The atmosphere can be heated to the limit, and Scorpios will have to make difficult decisions, whether to escalate the conflict or look for ways to mitigate the situation. In December, astrologers do not advise Scorpions to make large deals, buy expensive things, or make long-term investments. This month is as deceptive as thin ice, and what seems promising may turn out to be a disappointment. The best strategy for Scorpios in December will be to unplug from active endeavors and continue with current affairs, despite the high workload. December will be like a washing machine, testing Scorpios for strength. If Scorpios are tempted to take excessive initiative or get into conflicts during this period, they will have to spend the first half of 2026 dealing with the consequences of December's mistakes. In the run-up to December, allow yourself a well-deserved rest, because this month marks not only the finale of 2025, but also heralds the first glimpses of 2026, although for some people these changes will come as early as September 2025. The author hopes that the information presented was clear and useful for the audience. Dmitry Shimko, the author of this material, expresses his gratitude for your attention and offers personal consultations to those who wish to deepen their knowledge on the subject. All necessary contact information for contacting Dmitry can be found in the description of the video. The author wishes everyone a wonderful 2025, and those who are already in December, a successful and happy 2026. See you soon.